Welcome, everybody, to the Level Up podcast. We're so glad you're here. I'm your host, John Arms, along with Eric Thurwanger, my co-host, and we have a very wonderful guest today. We're going to talk about some really cool stuff as it relates to moms and leadership, which is Eric's favorite subject, my favorite subject, and everybody's favorite subject. But with us today is, I got to say it right, Tricia Dege, rhymes with Peggy. So she makes it really easy for me, is Tricia Dege. And she's an amazing person. I think you and I got to know each other about 2 years ago, I think.
I think that sounds right.
First,
yeah.
I'll do a little bio work for here. So, founder of Mom Mastermind, coach, former CFO at a great company, Health Partners. That's where I get my health care.
Excellent.
Nonprofit, I believe.
Yep.
Advocate for moms and leadership, and one of the big ones, and a mom.
Yes, you got it. Yep. You hit the big boxes. Yep.
Those are the big boxes. And I was reading in your bio and your wonderful background and all that. You talk about you have a daughter. Do you have 1 kid, 2 kids, 10 kids? What's
two girls? I have two
girls.
middle schoolers. Yes. So we're in a fun stage. It's actually way better than I anticipated. But yes, 2 middle school daughters.
Oh my gosh. How lucky are they to have you for their mother?
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you.
So, well, listen, everybody, we're going to talk about moms today. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about moms and leadership. This is Tricia's spot. This is her calling, I think. And it's something that if we paid more attention to it, our economy would be stronger, our society would be stronger. And so there's a lot of dimensions here. So we are going to talk about Mom Mastermind, your business, moms and leadership, and all of that. But before we do that, give us a minute or two about your story. How did you arrive from a place of, I think it was 17 years in a corporate world, to like, nope, I'm going to go do this mom thing. How did you arrive here?
Yeah, I think if anybody had told me this would be the path, I would have argued long and hard with them. So I was a chief financial officer for many years. My background really was in operations and consulting, fixing problems, understanding business, working with people and teams to solve for any kind of operational issue. Often those had a financial component, and that's what led me. I was actually a consultant to Health Partners, and then years later they called and said, "Hey, we have an opening. Would you like to move and come work here?" And that's what started my story. And so I think unlike most people, I had a career that I loved. I worked for a great mission-driven company. I had very strong female leaders. In my consulting world, I would say I had very strong male leaders, but at Health Partners, very strong women leaders, great colleagues. I just got kind of restless. And that's something we can talk about later. Is I think we underestimate when strong talent gets restless, like what do you do? And that you should always be anticipating that. And so I decided that I wanted to do something different. And it took me almost a year. I'm a pretty quick decision maker, but it took me almost a year to decide, am I going to do something? And if that, what? And so I had always loved leadership development. And so I took a course, and then I got a coaching certificate. And all the time I just kept telling myself, I'm just exploring. You know, what might come next, if then what. And the day that I got my coaching certificate, my husband came in, after I'd done that, and I said, this is my thing and these are my people. Like, I have found the thing that really drives a lot of passion for me. And so then I spent some time working on a business plan, and I knew really quickly I didn't want to just hang out a shingle and coach anyone. There are plenty of great coaches in the world for men and for women. And so as I explored niching and what special thing might I offer to the world, it was really having an executive career and having children, and how do you navigate that? And I don't say how to do it right and how to do it my way, because that is a road to nowhere. It's really that, how do you think through these pieces and how you want to personally juggle them and have those quote unquote balance, in your life. And so that's my journey. So it's been coming up on 3 years now. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
so there have been times that, thriving, there have been times that have been really tough. I think
Oh,
every
sure.
small business owner will tell you that.
Mhm.
Starting a business in the middle of the pandemic probably wasn't like the smartest thing ever, but it was a great launching pad for the business I wanted, because I think that changed the world of work for moms,
Oh my gosh.
in some good and so. The pandemic was really difficult, but it started a conversation that I
Yeah.
think really needed to be had and continues.
Okay. That's
You know,
that's an
it's
amazing journey.
interesting. I was going to say, what you're doing on the mom front is very similar to what some people, including myself, do on the veteran front, right? There's this demographic out there that's in the workplace, but not always understood of the skill set they bring. And I've talked to John about this many times that, sometimes people say, we have X amount of veterans we've hired. And I said, that's great. And I said, what are you doing with them? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, no, what do you mean? Because it's like, they're all excited to hire them, but then they don't really know that internal power that they bring to the workforce. And I think what I'm hearing, when we talked the first time and then looking at your website and everything that you're working on, I think you've come to really be able to quantify what that power is that moms bring to the executive level in the workplace. And can you touch down on that a little bit? Like, what are you seeing that they're bringing to the table that more people should say, hey, these are qualities and characteristics we need here?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because from my perspective, I would swing that a little bit and say everything you'd expect of everybody else, and maybe a little bit ability to juggle more, organize a little bit better, get 10 times as much done. What I think in the workplace what we do is we somehow think that once we put that label of mom on, somehow people have gone soft. They can't make all the decisions,
Yeah.
they can't
Interesting.
do all the things, they won't show up for the 5 o'clock meeting, they don't want
Mm.
the promotion, they don't. And I find with my clients none of that to be true. They want to be offered. There are times they're going to say, that doesn't work for me. There were a lot of opportunities, in my story,
Yeah.
where I really wanted to get back into operations, but I couldn't, given my husband's a commercial pilot, I
Mhm.
couldn't do a 7 a.m. meeting easily. I mean, once in a while,
Yeah.
but physicians needed meetings early or late, and our company, it was early, and we didn't have daycare reliably all the time to be able to do multiple
Sure.
times a week, that kind of. And so I had to make a choice. Okay, how would that work? Okay, that doesn't actually work with my family. So I'm going to stay and keep going, on the path that I'm on. And so I think what women want is to not be undervalued and not to be excused from promotion and those kinds of things. They want to be right there in it. I'm a huge advocate of women taking control of this themselves. I think they want to be offered all the opportunities and anybody else has,
Yeah.
and there will be times that they say no to those. But I think there are a lot of women who they want to be able to do both. They just need a little help
Right.
on occasion with the juggling act. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to stay with that if we could. I'm going to read some data that's out there. You use this and cite this, and others to do too, to give us some context. Women hold just one of 7 executive leadership positions in corporate America. One of 7, and they are outpaced 17-1 at the CEO position. 86% of women are mothers, and 1 in 3. This was interesting. This was on your website. 1 in 3 are considering leaving or slowing their careers. The reason I bring that up is you talk about woman-centered leadership. And so there's great data on, wow, we probably are not just utilizing all the skills that want to be used and all the people that want to contribute to the best of degrees. But at the same time, I'm like, I think we should change the conversation from, it's not about accommodating mothers, right? Because of their mothers. Like, listen, they've got these amazing gifts. Reach into them. You'll figure out, right? Like this. So talk about women-centered leadership. I hate it when people talk about when you do accommodate. Like, wait, you're missing the whole thing here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you've ever met my mom, oh my God, like if you want to win a war or build a building or my mom
Do the
was,
thing. Yeah.
oh my God, yeah, she amazing, right? But talk about women-centered leadership. and how that can get us over just our current state of where women in leadership are.
Yeah. So I do think that there are differences between men and women, and those are well documented. How often they'll go out for the job posting based on how many criteria they meet, the kinds of skills they bring, and the kinds of skills that they're oftentimes lacking, and that of course doesn't apply to everybody, but a lot of times we find different skill sets in men and women, and that's the whole goal of my work is to increase the diversity at the C-suite level, not to overrun the world, but to increase the diversity because it changes the skill set that leadership teams have. But to do that, women need different things. They need more development in the characteristics that develop confidence, and that's tested in the research, that they just have an inherent sense, whatever that is, experience, societal teachings, the way that they were brought up, what other women say to one another, that's the place where we have to do their leadership different. Women lean towards working in cohorts. They like to learn together. And that I think is a significant difference, that when we can put them together, they glean a lot from one another, and that helps, all boats rise.
Learning together. And I think I've seen, this is how you do your coaching, right? You do it in cohorts.
I do. Yep.
Yeah. Genius. There's something like, since doing fractional and how leadership has changed, both of you guys are literally in the leadership industry. And there's something that happened, I think, in the last several years where we learned how to learn together, and we learned the power of that. Holy cats. It's everything. It's everything when you learn together.
Yeah, a couple
I think
ways
like,
I think that shows up is that first I went to market with one-to-one coaching, and businesses and individuals said, "Oh, I'd really rather do a cohort." So that's sort of proof in the pudding. But also I run a particular type of coaching. It's 12 sessions, 6 months long. And about 3/4 of the way, I give each group a choice. Do you want to do this particular ninth item together? Or do you want to pull another one-on-one? And it just depends. Every now and then I'll have a group that they're feeling like I need some more traction, and they'll decide to do a one-on. But 9 times out of 10, they're like, nope, want to stay together with my group. But the most interesting fact, I think, is qualitative, not quantitative, and that is there's a point in every cohort where each person realizes that they are not a unicorn, that's major struggle that they think that they have. They're not the only one. And it's like the gates fly open and people start growing and they start sharing more when they realize, I'm not the only one who has that problem. And I think that's one of the challenges of being a working mother, is it can be isolating. You go to the people, the other people there may not be largely working mothers, and so the conversation stalls and it's difficult, and you're not talking about this stuff at work. It's like, where do you find that community when you're not going to ball games and happy hours every night because you have kids at home?
Right. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting that you talk about that. When I served in the Corps, they've forever believed in, they would say there was a leadership principle called train your Marines as a team. Whenever possible, bring people together for the training, because I think it amplifies the learning and it amplifies the collaborative nature of it. And, like you, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but I also do coaching in teams. And the dynamic is so much different because you start to realize where the strengths are, and that maybe it's not a weakness of yours, but you start to realize, all right, that person's a lot better at this. I really need to team up with them on this. So the team dynamic is very important, or the cohort dynamic. I think it really creates that tribe, right? Where you feel like you're part of something. There's that sense of belonging.
I always have people ask at the end, like, how are we staying together? Because, you've had this
Yeah.
very intense experience over the course of many months, and then
And
they
that's
don't
a
want
sign
to,
of a
they
great class
don't
when
want to
people want to stay together.
disassemble. Yeah. Yeah.
John just finished up a leadership class with me, and they're already figuring out how to stay together, keep that cohort together. Because there's a dynamic that's reached when people get to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
There
Mm-hmm.
is, and I think there's a lot of cultural change in our economy. That I don't think there is since the pandemic. A reshuffling of priorities, a challenging of status quo, maybe a more a different look on the future. For many years we kind of did the same thing the same way for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We did just like kind of. It looks like this, it feels like this, and you show up and you get a paycheck and you contribute to your 401k and
Yeah.
this is it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that, to your point earlier, Tricia, is a lot of people are like, isn't there more? Isn't there more? Isn't there more impact? Isn't there more to this? Is this everything? Let's do more together. Let's learn together. Let's develop. I think it's more than about. Is it just about the quarterly dividend report? Because if that's it, if that's what it's all about, you got to question that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's fine for shareholders, but not fine for the people, right? There has to be more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Entirely.
I even think timing. This couldn't be a better time to help moms in the workplace level up, because there's so many opportunities. I mean, it's kind of like the WNBA right now. You got Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all these people that are bringing attention to it. So it's up to the WNBA to do something with it, but they have an opportunity. They got a moment in time here when eyes are on them. And here's what I see, Tricia. I see that one of the benefits of the pandemic era is that because there was a lack of complacency in the workplace, those moms that want to rise up right now, I feel like there's more opportunity, because one thing that we never talk about, or you just don't hear a lot about, you always hear about the moms that don't want to go to the meetings, the moms that can't be there early, they got to drop off the kids, the moms that have to leave early, the moms that have to do the doctor run and all that stuff. But there's got to be plenty of men doing it too. And I would even bet there's a higher number today than ever before in our nation's history. So from that standpoint, executives that are listening to this that need to level up their workplace, when you have moms that are willing to level up and bring their A game, I think there's some real opportunity for them right now. Simply because there's a lot of men that we don't even talk about that are doing the doctor runs or stay home dads or whatever. They've made shifts too. I think it seems like there could be the opportunity for much more advancement and new doors to open up.
Tricia, help us get there. Help us get there for a minute. You got some really good stuff here. Businesses run the risk of losing their knowledge, experience, and female leadership if proactive steps are not taken, and that's going to hurt, right? Like, if I interpret it right, if you don't figure out how to use your moms, you're going to lose it, and that's going to hurt the pipeline, culture, and all that kind of stuff. For those listening, give us a shot at, when you talk about specific proactive steps.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those a little bit.
Yeah. So I think there's two sides to this coin. So when we talk proactive steps, I'm a huge advocate for equitable pay. I think that's really, really important for all people.
Yep.
Women seem to be the ones who have more of the equitable issue on their side. Flexible work is really important to parents. Parental leave, I think, is getting a lot of press, and quality childcare. I think those things are all really important, and we need people advocating for those. At the same time, like we were talking about, I think there are plenty of women who really want to be in the workforce, do both. They don't necessarily even want to be labeled a mom. They just want to be a
Yeah.
working woman who's doing her thing. And so to me, the advocacy step there is investing in people to create opportunities for them to advance within or up the ladder. There's advancement that can happen with skill building and learning more and being able to do the thing you're doing even better, or more effectively. And then there's the advancement component. And I think the thing that gets people is loyalty, especially for moms. If they're able to do a job they love, know that someone cares about the fact that they've got this whole other role, that's very mentally, emotionally, and physically challenging outside of work, and invest in them. I think we misread the loyalty because it's hard to put a label on that other than quantifying, when people leave, how much that costs. And so that's really my angle, is how do we create opportunity for women and mothers and build loyalty for companies in the process? And so I do that, through a 6-month coaching model where we really get after both things. How do you grow in your business role, and how do you show up the way you want it at home? And that's very personal. It's not a training. There's no video components to that, because every person wants that to be very different. And I have learned that sometimes with questions that I've asked the hard way. There are women who would put those roles 1-to-1. My job and my momming they're equally important to me. A lot of people, put one over the other, and it's really about figuring out how do companies leverage that to each individual's unique needs.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I've said this over and over again. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that each demographic in the workplace, whether it's a certain generation, a certain gender, from the military or not, I think that they have to have some positive words associated with them. And I think the loyalty side is absolutely huge, because I'm going to tell you something. When I was in boot camp and we sent our letters home to our friends and family, moms are the first ones to write back. Moms are the loyal ones. Moms have their moms have their finger on the pulse of what's happening on their people. And if this point isn't made, we lose the whole fight. Because I will tell you right now, a mom knows every single thing that child in boot camp is going through, will go through, where they will go, where they're deployed, when they're coming home. They know the benefits for that child. So if we translate that to leadership, here's where I'm going to tell you that here's where the hot nerve is, because you just hit it for me. So now there's an opportunity, because at the end of the day, a lot of people leave an organization because they feel like their leaders don't care. Who cares more than a mom? And they have to have these word associations, right? They have to have the word associations that moms are loyal, moms are caring, moms are empathetic. Those are great qualities of a leader that some people, male and female, may struggle with. But I think that when you can wrap up what a mom brings to the table with these definable characteristics and traits and features, that becomes very powerful, because I think a lot of moms are trying to say that. I can tell you, as a speaker, when I get introduced, I'm never introduced as a dad. I don't have it in my intro. Maybe I should. I'm rethinking this. I'm like, unless my kids are like, no, you suck, don't put it in. I don't know. But here's what I will tell you. 75% of the female speakers that are introduced have somewhere in there mom. So I think it's a worthy title for the business sector. I think if we attach the right traits to it, people are going to listen. Because there's no doubt, when you're in the military, you need your mama. Moms send care packages. That's what they're called. Care packages. Do you know how many care packages I got for my dad? 0. Do you know how many my dad probably knew were sent to me? 0.
Yep.
Moms are the glue that holds our whole military together. What could they do in your business? There's a great tagline for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eric's writing taglines. Go ahead, Tricia.
Yeah. I was just going to say, all of those things about the care and nurturing and what they bring to the workforce, and the ability just to get things done. I think every mom out there would tell you they can outwork anybody, and then take really charged situations, diffuse them, work them through, get everybody moving on. I mean, I should make a list. I have a great post
You should.
sequence of like all the crazy things that we do as moms and how we translate those to the workforce. But I think the other aspect is glue and holding people, but also really developing people, developing teams. Because with your kids, you're constant, and that's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
And then the ability to understand complex, my favorite part of work was the finance, operational, and strategic components, all very sophisticated. And how do those come together? I think women are just really good at understanding and pulling out from that. Then what do you do? Who needs to be doing what? How do we get going? They don't waste a lot of time. Admire what I call like admiring the problem. It's like, gotta go, gotta make decisions, gotta be going.
Yeah.
That's basically all the moms in my life are that way. I mean, starting with my own mother, but especially with my own mother. She was a force. You were talking about a little bit of data here that we should pick apart a little bit. I believe the number is 77 cents on the dollar. I think that's the pay rate between male and female. I'm not going to say dad and mom. I think it's for every dollar a man makes in the workplace, a woman makes 77 cents. And now, of course, there's variations, but okay, that doesn't make any sense, especially in the context of what you described. Someone who can get stuff done, that. How do we address that? Like, what should we talk about? Why aren't we there yet? Why are we still off on that? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think this is probably the cause that I'm most passionate about. And I think this is true for all women. There's the motherhood penalty, I think, which drops that down even a little bit further. But I think it's an issue for all women. And I think for a long time, men and women just didn't talk about salaries. And so it happened. So I think there's two components to it. It's the proposer of initial comp or raises that's willing to say, I'll offer you something less. That's a problem. And then it's a problem that women accept that. I had a client who got real feisty about the fact that she felt she was undercompensated. You accepted that increase without you accepted that job at that pay without negotiating. Okay, so who's that on? Okay, so it was a really terrible offer. Bad on them for making that offer to you, but you chose not to negotiate that for whatever reason. And likely that's one of the components of our curriculum is influence, persuasion, and negotiation skills.
Sure.
And so I think that's why we're still there, is because people are willing to do it because they can get away with it, and that helps the budget. And women, some women are willing to accept that pay differential. What I think needs to happen is we just need to get, as leadership teams and as boards, we get that on the radar. Medtronic here in the Twin Cities they just decided we're going to fix that. 100% success in the US, 99% globally. I was surprised to hear. I'm surprised we're not shouting that from the mountaintops, that everybody's not knocking on their door saying, how'd you do that? How'd that impact your bottom line? How many years did it take you to get there? What guidelines did you set? What does that actually mean to hit equity? I'm sure it's not dollar for dollar. It's some kind of a general range. I don't know the details of their program, but I think it's amazing that if an honest company says we've done it, they set out some guidelines and they just went about making it happen. I think that's what we need, is for companies just to get really serious about that isn't okay anymore. And it's likely, I was a CFO, you're not going to do that in a year. That would likely be at what it's 77. So what is that? A 23% differential. It likely takes a little bit of time, but we need people just to get serious about making that different.
Yeah. And there's the other side of it, right? It's not about catching up. It's about when you invest, right? When you invest in the right way, the yield is so much higher. Erik, can you imagine if in the Marine Corps, they said, women, you're at this pay, men, you're at that pay?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, the military has been way ahead of the business sector for many years. They just don't have that. You're not.
Exist.
Yeah, you're not a female general. You're a general. I mean, I think there's like really like there's two sides of the coin here. Do we continually look at leaders based on their gender or do we not?
Yeah.
There's that thought too. And how deep into the variables on the pay scale do you go? Based on, I mean, there's so many variables here where you got to look at everything, right? And I think that when I was in the Marines, women were called women Marines, WMs. That wasn't derogatory either. That was what it was. There's the WM Association, and there still is. There still is for the women that served back then that were WMs. They're like, well, we're not letting that go. But when you become a Marine now, you're a Marine, so they don't add a W. So I think there's a lot of debate on, because I know a lot of the women that I coach, they don't want to be referred to. They don't want any adjective describer in front of it. And I respect that too. But then again, there's some that like to say I'm a veteran business leader. So, we've gotten to the point where people are just deciding on what best identifies themselves, I guess. But for the most part, it does seem like there's a big push to remove the disclaimer part, right? The prefix, if you will.
Well, we always get wrapped around the axle on that in America. It happens in every generation. Is we get all worked up about stuff and lose focus on what really matters. Like, we're people, we're humans, we're awesome as we are, we're all worthy, and then some social media stuff happens, and then everybody gets all worked up and gets us off track, right? Gets us off track of what we're really trying to accomplish.
I agree with that. And we're all, for the purpose of this discussion, working people that don't just work. None of us spend 24 hours a day at work. We are all humans with some other kind of roles and responsibilities, hats that we wear outside of work that we would assume are also important to us.
I think it's important for every leader almost needs their own personal mission statement too. Like, as a leader, my mission is to, and then you can figure out what accolades go with that, what traits go with that. I think nowadays it is important to have leaders identify. I've encouraged them to have their own personal vision statement too, right? That you may have a vision statement for your company, but your personal vision statement's far more important. And even the business mission statement, maybe their own personal leadership mission statement. Like, every day I'm on a mission to do this, will help with their development. Like you said, Tricia, they need to be developed and they need to be grown, and it'll help them. I think we're in an era where leaders have to really define what it is that they're looking for, because there are so many options. It wasn't like 100 years ago where you show up to the factory and there was one option, push this down and then go home. So it's an interesting era where there are flexible hours and remote status, and people can actually spend time with their family. And so it's a very unique opportunity right now for anyone that wants to rise up or level up, as we say. They can, but I think it has to be defined.
Because then I think otherwise the choices become overwhelming. Where do you want to work? How do you want to work? You want to be a leader? You want to be an individual contributor? You want to be a thought leader? Like, you want to start your own thing? You want to be in somebody else's thing? You want a big thing, a mid-size, a small thing? Understanding who you are and what you want and what you want to contribute. Really important. Yeah.
We're at a moment, and I write about this in my book, Revolt, is we're at this moment of really thinking about our spot, our individual spot, and you were referencing the pay differential, and that is as much a carryover of just norms, right? These norms that have been here forever, and we've just been doing things in a certain way for such a long time that things become normalized. And I don't judge that. It's just like, it is what it is, right? But when it starts to not serve the people, then it becomes a problem. When it starts to work against your own individualism, your gifts, your talents, your skills, what makes you wonderful, then it's not so good. I see this in fractional all the time. Like, people take their identities from work.
Yeah.
And when that vanishes, they lose a sense of identity. And I'm like, no, you're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome if that company never existed, right? You're awesome as a mom. You're awesome as a dad. You're awesome as a person. Embrace that first, and I'm with you. an
Yeah.
individual vision statement is the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah,
It
because
is
you don't
so
want to fit
good.
them into you don't want to try and cram everybody into the same mold. You know,
Yeah.
it was interesting. I just read, I'm a big movie guy, so I was reading on the new Ghostbusters movie, right? So they've done
Mhm.
two in the new era, right? With this new crew. And they tried really hard to get Rick Moranis back.
Mm.
And he said no again. He retired. He said he wants to just spend time with his family, and they cannot get him to come back. And evidently they were going to pay him pretty well because the fans would have loved to see him, but he's like, no, family first. So um, I don't know how much they offered him, but it seems like it would have been worth the cameo, but he didn't want to violate what that importance of family was. So I think we're at an era where, you know, all these traits and characteristics that these working moms bring to the table, there's a place for them at the table. I think now, maybe now more than ever. And you know, the only thing that would separate the pay in the military right now is hazardous duty pay. Like if you go to combat, you do get hazardous duty pay. So those that go would, I guess, theoretically make a little bit more. But hey, going into hostile zones is pretty much open for everybody now. So
Yeah.
they can go, which is great.
Right.
But yeah, it's an interesting time where some of the direction that we're headed in, we can not only just navigate it, but maybe control the destiny for a lot of people. And you know, I was going to ask you, Tricia. I know you do a lot of the cohorts for the moms. Do you do anything for business leaders where they can come out and hear, just like I do? I teach business leaders what they can expect from hiring a veteran. Are you helping to coach business leaders to better understand the working mom market and what's out there?
A little bit. So oftentimes I'll do a workshop and invite leaders to come into the workshop, and then they
Yeah,
get to hear some of the dialogue as we work through some of this. They get to hear what's really on people's minds. Um,
good.
and then I do speaking individually, and then I run a speakers collective of women where we're really just focused on helping all women rise. And so our goal is really to inspire and raise confidence in the audience, so that people go on to do the thing that they love, that's on their heart or on their mind. And
Yeah,
that, you know, we sometimes have women and allies, you know, in the room for that conversation. And oftentimes it's men that are
gotcha.
hiring us to come in. Like I've heard from the women's leaders, or I've heard from the ERG,
Yeah,
or I've heard from women on my team that this is what they're looking for. We'd love to support that. You know, can you come in and speak or do a workshop on that?
yeah, that's good. I mean, that I think I think in the business sector, from the hiring side, it's important to introduce this, not that it's a new concept, but introduce your take on it to as many people as possible to help create a different understanding and greater acceptance. And just like John said when we started, it's just things you don't think about, you don't talk about every day, but things that
Yeah.
people need to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it comes full circle then in this conversation we were having about um, do people want the label? And so
Yeah.
I find that is it's a really interesting challenge for me in marketing and sales. So juggling between a career, especially an executive career and motherhood, it is a challenge, and it's a challenge people wish they didn't have. And it's
Mhm.
something we don't talk a lot in business about. So that's the reason I crafted an approach
Yeah.
that says, all that aside, we're going to do this work, and it's developing high performance at home and at work. And it's actually person, so gender, income, status, education agnostic, but it's a great tool to help moms who want to do that work, and businesses that want to
Yeah.
invest in their people so they can do that work sort of on the side
Yeah.
while work goes on, while, you know, all the stuff at home goes on. This is a tool, as we talked about, for developing opportunity for them, and then loyalty for them to the business, you know, that's supporting them through that.
Yeah.
It's a complex discussion, and one that it's really worth having, right? Like you said, like we don't need to define titles, right? It's not necessary. And if you look at business performance, as a dad, I can tell you, like my favorite adjective is dad. Like of everything I will ever achieve in my entire
Yeah.
life, it is the fact that I have achieved being a dad to my three sons. and or our three sons, my three sons. That's a show I grew up with. Hey, how do you like that? But Fred McMurray and that was a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's funny how we identify with being a mom. We identify with being a dad, an uncle, or something like that. So you want to hold on to these things that are so meaningful and make us who we are.
Right.
But because that's part of our gifts that we bring. The fabric of society is a complex structure, isn't it? But if we see each other, right?
You have to overcome past perceptions. That's a big thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, let's we're getting up on it. Let's round it out here. So, Tricia, help others find you. Obviously, Mom Mastermind, getting moms, happy in the workforce and everything that comes with all that. Tell us how we can reach you, what to expect when they do, all of that. Let's do a little bit of business on this side.
Oh, thank you. So the website is simple. It's mommastermind.com. From there, there's a lot of information about the services that we offer, the ability to book directly with me straight from the website. I do spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I'm super active there, mostly on my personal page, which is Tricia Mason Dege, and then some of that gets copied over to the Mom Mastermind page. And then a presence on Facebook and Instagram too, though that's not necessarily where I cultivate an audience and do as much, but the same content is available there.
Yeah.
And so I would say on LinkedIn, I'm really trying to offer both individual perspectives for working mothers, as well as cultivating some conversation with businesses about how they might think about this differently, as similar to the conversation we've been having today. It's like, how do you see moms? How do you generate the best opportunities for them? I'm not huge on the word support, although I think I used that in one of my recent posts. It's really about more than that. It's really about cultivating all that they have to offer, as we've talked about plenty here today.
Yeah. John F. Kennedy, a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
That's right.
A great thing. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're doing great things. I love that you're helping moms level up. I think it's so important. It's so important to help them with that identity and be able to showcase that and share it in such a positive way.
Thank you.
We look forward to following you more from our perch at the Level Up community, and we'll continue to watch and celebrate the work you do. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tricia.